What is up, denizens of the interwebs? It's Arza Chats here, coming at you with another video. This time, we're talking about the next big DEI failure that's going to come after Ubisoft goes out of business because of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Of course, that means we're talking about Bioware's Dragon Age Veilguard. So like, subscribe, and hop in, losers. We're going searching for the modern audience. Alright, so a huge amount of the problems with Dragon Age Veilguard comes from this article from That Park Place, which reports on an Asmongold video. I'm personally not a fan of Asmongold, and therefore I've never seen a video of his. But I do think that sometimes the things that he says is incredibly accurate, and he really represents the everyman. He doesn't seem to be a person who generally has his own thoughts, but his thoughts seem to be pretty accurate for those of the general population. And I'm just gonna say it now, this game looks atrocious. From the very little I've seen, I enjoyed Dragon Age 1, though it wasn't the kind of game that I wanted it to be. I did have a lot of fun with it, but I didn't find enough fun to go bother dealing with the DLC of the game. Though I think I should go back and play it now that I have a little bit more free time, a few less games that I need to get through first. So, before I get into talking about this article, I just want to talk about this character right here. Why does he look identical to Will Ferrell and Zoolander? I just need to know. It just bothers me a lot. Why does he look like Will Ferrell from Zoolander? This guy and this guy look identical. It's disturbing, to say the least. So, this article with Asmongold really begins down here. How can you look at this and think this is good? How can you look at this and think that it's good? How could you do this? Like, I don't understand how. What Asmongold here is fairly to understand, because he is the average audience. He is the kind of an everyman who's only now starting to wake up to a lot of these issues, is he doesn't seem to realize that the people he's criticizing doesn't actually care about the game. They don't care about gaming as a whole. The kind of stuff that's shown in these trailers is bait for investors. It's for people who don't play games, who don't know what a video game is. These people, all they care about is the money that they'll make, and they're being lied to and they don't even know it. They think that this looks good, but they have no idea. And the developers don't care whether or not it looks good, because all they care about is putting their identity in it, which will be mentioned on later in this video. He then continues, no weight at all. It's not that there's no weight to it. It's that the acceleration is totally wrong. I want you to understand that if you can't get this right, the odds are you can't get anything else right either. And this is very true. He's just talking about basic momentum, body movement, body mass, the way that the person looks when they do actions. If you can't do that, how can we trust that you're going to get any other kind of action right? How are we going to trust that you're going to be able to get running looking smooth? How do we know you're going to be able to get gameplay looking and playing smooth? If you can't get basic movement and animation correct, how can you get anything that's actually complex correct either? He continues on here, you're going to call it nitpicking, I'm calling it a pattern. And this is something that's super important, that I think people like this brew mention a lot. A lot of the people who will criticize Asmongold for having this take are what's known as toxically positive. They look at this and they don't see the flaws. They look at it and all they see are the potential. They see the possibilities. They see the potentially good roleplay. They see the potentially good story and the potentially good combat. They don't see what's right in front of their face. They see what's 3 years down the line. It's the main issue shows like The Acolyte. For every single episode, people are coping, oh, it's gonna get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. And it never got better. And then once it ended, first people were like, well, we've been lied to, we've been duped, it never got better, because it never was. And now we have a whole nother group of people who think it's going to get better in the second season, it's going to get better, it has to get better, because they are incapable of accepting reality for anything other than the next step. They can't see what's in front of their face because they're too busy looking at the future. Asmongold continues on here where he really doesn't hold any punches. Man, I mean, this really looks like a mobile game, and he's 100% right, unfortunately. I mean, what is this group? This group looks like the most generic diversity group of all time. It's like if you took the ESO group and told Google Gemini to generate it. It doesn't look like a natural party in a medieval setting game, because Dragon Age is a medieval setting game. It has always been. If you wanted to do one that was designed in an African style world, that'd be fine, but you have to do it in a different world. You can't do that in Dragon Age, because that's not the world of Dragon Age. The article continues on here where Asmongold makes the joke that we should stop doing games. We should go outside or something. Maybe I'll find a stick that looks like a sword out in the woods or something like that. Because basically we're at the point where video games are just getting worse. Because the people who run games don't give a damn about video games. And they're just hell-bent on making the hobby less entertaining for everyone and making it so that it only matters for them. It is the ultimate form of gatekeeping, and it is the ultimate form of pushing everyone else. They came into our space, and now they think it's a little too crowded with all of us old fans being in it. Asmongold continues once again down here, who thought it was a good idea to make the character look at that. He's referencing Kunari's, which will lead me to this article over here by The Gamer. Bioware devs defends Dragon Age Veilguard's Kunari designs, and there isn't a whole lot going on in this article. The only thing we really get is down here, with some claiming that they just look like humans with massive forehead and horns. A few side-by-side photos have been making the rounds lately, featuring Dragon Age the Veilguard's Kunari designs with Evershock for the most unfair comparison. What they're claiming in this article is this character right here is a unique Kunari. There are no other Kunaris who look like him. So that's why it's unfair to compare him to the way that the Veilguard Kunaris look. But I have a much better answer for you. How about you look at what's happened to tieflings in Dungeons & Dragons? For a while, tieflings were always designed as being creepy and uncanny. They're small, they're lanky, they've got giant horns and a long tail. But if you look at the recent Tumblrization of Dungeons & Dragons, tieflings are now cutesy. They're something you want to hug, and every single gay person wants to be seen as a tiefling because it's something cute and a little liminal, instead of being what they truly are, which are half-demon monsters. It's just the same thing. They took something that is a half-demon monster and they made it cute, because I can definitely see a whole bunch of people who definitely need therapy simping for this guy right here, this weird-looking Kunari, because they love anything that's liminal and looks even remotely monster-like. And that's really all that is to this article. It's just a whole bunch of cope on the defense of the Kunari designs. The last thing that Asmongold says in this article from John Trent is mentioning that what's important to me is the vibe of the game and the way that it plays. And that's true. Gamers don't care about top-of-the-line graphics. Gamers don't care about voice acting, about identity, about anything like that. All they care about is the game is fun and that it looks decent while playing. And by looks decent, I don't mean it looks top-of-the-line 4K graphics. I mean that it looks internally consistent and that it looks in the way that's stylized to make sense and be consistent with the world. This game looks, it's too bright, it's too colorful. What is all these effects? This game is supposed to be dark, grungy, and serious. It shouldn't be pretty. And when it is pretty, it should be a gothic pretty, not this natural, holy light kind of prettiness. It's the wrong vibe. And the last very important thing that's said in this article that Asmongold had mentioned in his video is that you guys need to start judging books by their covers. Like I said, people are in a toxic positivity mindset where all they do is they judge it by the potential and they judge it by what it could be. They refuse to judge it for what it is and what it looks like to them. And because of that, they're always refusing to judge it by the cover, which leads to them just being this all positivity. Oh, well, it looks like that there because it's just cut wrong. Oh, it looks like there because the lighting's off. They refuse to actually take accountability for what's wrong with the issue, what's wrong with the product, and instead assume that there must be some kind of accident, that's what's there, and that it cannot possibly be that way in the actual product. And that brings me over to this article from The Gamer about the game that's making this game just look even worse. Dragon Age understands freedom better than players do, written by Stacey Henley over at The Gamer. And this article really goes in and talk about how it's going to be about finding the balance between player freedom and authored content, basically trying to find the line between what the players can choose to do, choose to interact with, and choose to have happen, versus what the developers really want to be going on. And it's true, that is a huge issue when it comes to any kind of RPG game, and they continue on here. If the future of gaming is doing whatever you want, what is to stop you from playing Red Dead Redemption 2 and using the power of AI to make tuberculosis go away potion? This is referencing the idea that some games just have absolutely expansive AIs. The ability, for instance, Skyrim's new mod system that allows you to fully talk to fully realized characters in the game using AI models. But the person talking here clearly doesn't understand what they are talking about. They don't have an understanding of what is going on here. The AI isn't doing something like this. The point of the AI-based storytelling would be to richen the world, not to allow you to use cheap tricks to bypass stuff, and this is completely disingenuous. This is a way of them saying that they were lazy. They couldn't come up with a whole bunch of different narrative structures, so they're really trying to get you to go down the one trail that they wanted you to do, because if they had to do more than 3 plot lines, their brains would shatter from the fact that it simply isn't built strong enough to handle that kind of change. The only other important part from this article is Elper and the team will have to struggle with the idea of how much freedom modern players want and need. And here's the biggest problem, is this line right here. How much freedom modern players? What modern players? There are the players and there are people who don't play. There is no modern player, just as there is no modern audience. And you know, the modern audience, I can tell you how much freedom they want. They want zero freedom. They want everything to be identical, to be the way that they want it to be in their perfect dream Tumblr world, where everything's gay and everything's gross and nothing is legitimate or honest to reality. And that's what Veilguard is honestly starting to look out to be. If we take this over to some articles from John F. Trent over at That Park Place, which seem to extrapolate this same idea that's being referenced in this article. The first point where it's really clear that the developers of Veilguard are really making it their goal to take away player choice comes from this headline: Dragon Age the Veilguard creative director declares all companions are canonically pansexual. Now, there is an argument you can make because it is an RPG similar to like Skyrim, where in Skyrim you can marry just about any character. No one has any kind of bars held because of the gender of your Dragonborn. They'll marry whoever asks, as long as there isn't a reason the character won't say yes canonically in the game. Alternatively, there are games like Cyberpunk where characters are written in with sexualities pre-programmed. For instance, River Ward is a canonically heterosexual man and will not have sex with a male V, whereas Carrie doesn't really care. And they also do the same thing with the female, where there's one female companion who will only have sex with a female V and one who doesn't care what the gender of V is. So this isn't the first time that we've had pre-programmed in sexualities in the games, but it makes a whole lot more sense in the setting of Cyberpunk than it does in the setting of Dragon Age. And really, there's only one actual point in this. Empler informed Game Rant, there's a difference between player sexual and pansexual. All companions are canonically pansexual. So this kind of forces the question. First of all, what is player sexual? Player sexual, I am assuming, is this idea that all NPCs are attracted to the player, but have a separate sexuality when it's not involving the player. For instance, most NPCs are going to be heterosexual, unless the player is a male, then they are all suddenly bisexual. That would just be a way that a lot of games would do it, similar to how Skyrim does it. Pansexual, on the other hand, according to this definition provided by John F. Trent, a group of which is open to members of all sexual orientations or gender identities, including straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transsexual, or transvestite. Pansexual is someone who's willing to have sex with any kind of identification. They don't care what you identify as long as you've got the parts to work. That's all that they really care about. And that's really all there is in this article. It's a lot more repeating. But the funnier part is this quote from one of the developers. As a queer trans woman, I have a perspective on the game that not everyone has. Dragon Age has long been a place where LGBTQIA+ folks can see people like themselves. Obviously, if you've seen any of my videos, you know that I'm going to have a massive issue with this idea for many reasons. First of all, no one cares about your identity. I only ever mention my identity in case a bunch of Wokosos come in here trying to insult me for trying to talk about things that I might not know. And for those who don't know, I am a bisexual man, and no, I don't give a shit. You can complain if you want, or you can be fine with it. I don't care. And then but that continues on. I don't have a unique experience that can be extrapolated from all the heterosexual people. I don't. That's not something that we have. Our experiences are the human experience, and the only differences in our experiences are boiled down to our lived experiences, not our identity experiences. There are some that might be, but something like your identity is not what's going to change how you perceive most of life, unless it is a mindset that you are building that is going to give you that perception on life. And then, of course, the inclusion of the super long version of the acronym, which is wholly unnecessary because it's mostly redundancy, and then folks can see people like themselves. If you need to see a gay character on screen to relate to that character, that is a you problem. If you cannot relate to a heterosexual, to a bisexual, pansexual, homosexual, transsexual, I don't care. If you cannot relate to a different character of a different identity, that is a you problem. It is not a problem that that character isn't represented. The problem is that you can't identify with someone else who doesn't match you one for one. If you can't identify with someone who doesn't match you one for one, how are you ever supposed to have empathy for the rest of people around you? If you can't have empathy for characters on the screen that aren't like you, how can I expect you to have empathy for people in real life who aren't like you? If you need to be represented 100% of the time, that is a narcissism issue. That is a self-centered issue, and that is something that you need to work out, not something that the video game industry needs to adhere to. This person is a narcissist through and through. They need to see themselves represented because they only care about themselves. And that is really the crux of a lot of the issues, especially when it comes to LGBT in video games, is that a lot of people who are working on them are narcissists. They only care about themselves, and they only care about the community, and they only want to do it in such a way that it serves them and serves their fetishizations. They don't care about quality. All they care about is being seen for the degenerates that they are. The last thing that this article really mentions is just talking down here about how the game's official reveal trailer has only 41,000 likes, with this rumor from Stuttering Craig over at Side Scrollers that Dragon Age the Veilguard retail pre-order sales are piss poor. I wholly believe that. The way this game looks, how every character looks pretty much the same and looks so ungodly sanitized, I fully believe that this game is doing atrocious on pre-order numbers. And then of course, going back to this notion that Bioware is doing everything in their power to prevent you from having your own player choice and controlling the narrative as much as possible, which is completely polar opposite to the structure of Bioware's past games. Every single previous Bioware game, you have the ability to be any kind of player you want, and this article really breaks down how they're going completely oppositional to that, because they specifically say things like they want the players to be nice, not to be rude or dangerous players. They want you to be the good guy, not the snarky anti-hero. just the goody two-shoes. With the center of the controversy around this article being a focus on blood magic, how one of the developers says that there won't be access to blood magic in this game. You won't be allowed to use blood magic because it's not the road we want the hero to walk right now. And she says so, and it says stuff like, and it's said in places like down here, blood magic is unlikely because we've shifted it from a power boost to really being the key of a lot of nasty stuff we aren't interested in having heroes do. I remember playing Dragon Age Origins and looking at blood magic. I never used it because I didn't play a mage, I played an archer. But I did have my mages on my team, and I do remember looking at some of the blood magic spells. This notion of changing it so radically between these two games, when a past theme of the game was that blood magic was not inherently evil, it's just a tool. The fact that it's being changed just goes to tell you about the paradigm of the people at Bioware right now. They don't have the ability to conceptualize a world in grays. All they can see is black and white. Blood is bad because it's blood. It's not cool. So why would I trust these people to be able to make an actually concise narrative-based game that has many different branching structures and gives you player freedom? I don't. And I think that is exactly why they have taken away all form of player freedom in this game where characterization is not concerned. And that's pretty much the bulk of the controversy around Dragon Age and Veilguard. There's one final point over here that Tran reports on. A new report regarding Dragon Age the Veilguard heavily implies the game is pornographic. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. I don't personally mind if there are sex scenes in games. I don't personally mind if there are explicit sex scenes in the games, as long as it's what you're signing up for. I do know that Dragon Age has had sex scenes before, but as far as I remember, they weren't all that explicit. The best you would have seen was a pair of breasts, but you weren't looking at anything that would give it a severely high rating. You weren't looking at genitalia, for instance, which in some games I have wanted that as a feature in the game, such as Cyberpunk, because it perfectly fits the world of Cyberpunk. But it wouldn't make sense to have something like that in Dragon Age, where that's never been a part of Dragon Age. If you put that in there just because, it would feel completely uncomfortable and out of the norm, and the fact that they want to do that is a little concerning to me. So ultimately, this game looks like it's going to flop. It looks like it's going to do atrocious. It looks like it's going to absolutely fail in the box office. And honestly, I'm kind of here for it. The fact that they think that they can keep getting away with it, that they think they can keep putting in DEI like this, they won't keep getting away with it because these people are not talented and they're running out of investor money and they're running out of fan goodwill. So I hope that they're ready for a couple of bad years after all of these DEI initiatives fail, because I don't think they know how to go back either. I think we're going to see most of the classic studios go out of business, be bought up by even bigger studios, or we're going to see a complete and utter revitalization of some even older studios that had gone out of business previously, or indie studios come to take their place. But ultimately, whatever happens is going to be the best for the gaming industry, because these people failing can only be a good thing. But that's all I've got for now. Let me know if Veilguard looks like a game that you're going to be interested in playing, or if you think they've gone completely over the DEI bridge with a rope around their neck. So, thanks for coming along and watching another studio burn themselves to the ground.